RTD late night YouTube talk show. We are live for a live stream, getting getting started a little bit later than normal. But yet, I was reading through a couple of interesting articles and wanted to share some information with you in regards to some concerns that a lot of people have out here, which I believe is a subject matter that we should touch on because a lot of people are still asleep at the wheel, not aware of the consequences of having a large amount of currency inside of this banking sector as it's starting to implode. And you run the risk of losing a lot of things that you thought was yours. And so I want to share my thoughts with you a little bit, as well as find out whatever else is on your mind. So as always, welcome to the live stream. My name is Mike, the host of Detroit's #1 late night YouTube talk show. So let me check in via the chat. And then as always, any new viewers, let me know where you're watching from. Would definitely love to welcome you to the stream, and then we'll get into a couple articles and I'll share my thoughts and get your thoughts, and then we'll move on. So looks like we got Broad Light Brokers in the building. We got Brando Commando. What else we got? Low blood pressure. All right, a couple more people tuning in. Nathaniel, King D, John the 10th Man. See a lot of comments out there. I'll try to get through those. And so what's everybody in Indianapolis? So Timothy from Indianapolis, how you doing, my friend? All right, so we got Bobcat from Toronto. Welcome. And as always, any stories worthy of discussing in regards to what we're all experiencing, definitely chime in via chat. And then I'll open up the phone lines. We'll love to hear from everybody. But I have about 7 or 8 articles that I've linked together to try to share some thoughts with you. And then we'll open those up. And so we got D. Reeves says Miami is here. How you doing? Watching from the Wolves. We got the Fed coin coming soon from Rodney. Definitely, it's brewing. Now, I don't think they'll be bold enough to call it the Fed coin, but if they're the primary issuer of it, i.e., those Fed accounts, then we could just consider it as the Fed coin. But all right, XRP. Okay, so let me get right into the articles, man. So I came across this article actually over the weekend, and it came out last Thursday. Didn't get a chance to do a video, and so it has to do with a concern that I think a lot of people will be confronted with, if they have not already, is simply put, given the circumstances we're all facing from the financial realm, the political mess, and all of those other issues, when it comes to just the practical financial matters of being able to work, save, invest, all those things, they're being challenged now heavily because everything's artificial. The entire equities markets, bond markets, you name any market has been propped up and manipulated to an extreme point, to where now the question that more people will probably be asking themselves, whether they're in an alternative media realm or not, is, outside of just having somewhere to park your funds, what good and what true value does your commercial bank actually offer you? Because the article I'm going to share with you here has to do with a couple people sharing stories about having a fairly larger amounts of cash parked in their bank or whatnot, and they don't feel like it's actually doing anything for them. And given the current interest rates and where it might be heading, you're basically lending your currency to your bank and not receiving much in return, but yet they have had the privilege of loaning out your currency and benefiting from it. But then again, because of all the things we're experiencing now, I got an article here as well talking about how commercial banks are cutting back on their lending practices. So what's going on with that? The whole purpose in banks being in existence, it seems, is to utilize a fractional reserve banking model to further expand their portfolio and profit off of other people's currency. But yet, if they're not lending anymore, what are they actually bracing for? And that's why I want to share another article about some concerns about some events that's about to unwind right as we speak. So I want to get into this first article here and then get your thoughts along the way. And I won't read through all these because they're quite long, but yet I took a minute to try to thumb through them a little bit. But here's an article here. It says people fear they have too much cash in their bank accounts. And then, of course, the article here starts off by says falling interest rates are tempting some Americans to forgo safety and pour their savings to assets such as, and they use stocks and they use Bitcoin as well. And so they share 2 or 3 stories here of individuals who have, they're younger. They have a couple 15,000 saved. And so because they're not earning anything in their conventional savings accounts offered through their bank, and their checking accounts, basically the average right now, I think is 0.06 in your checking account nationwide. So you have to go find places to park your funds in order to get something in return. And so a lot of younger people are now beginning to question the point of having currency parked for a long period of time, basically not growing. And so everyone at this current moment, outside of preservation, trying to hold on to what they do have, they're trying to chase some yield and try to actually have those funds grow. And the question that they're going to be confronted with is it still wise to put your currency in a bank? And so I have my thoughts about that. So I'm curious to get yours. But ultimately speaking, given the environment we're heading into, you are lending your currency to a bank that has no real true obligation outside of the insurance provided by the FDIC. And so once again, we all know, for those in alternative media realm, know that, they don't have nearly as much funds to cover all the amount of deposits out there. So there's going to be some haircuts taken along the way. And so reason I thought this was something to start off with is because outside of the concerns that a lot of people have about having too much funds, and so a lot of people I've had on the show, a lot of guests prior to, have mentioned that in this current environment, heading into a short area of complete turbulence, as well as this disruption in the financial realm, you wouldn't want to have too much in your bank account because of special policies put in place through the Dodd-Frank Act, which another article I'm going to share with you talks about how they're unwinding. The banks are trying to press Congress to unwind some of the restrictions on having to have too much capital in case of some type of an event they experience. So according to the article I'm going to share with you in a minute, clearly the banks are winning. They've already loosened up all restrictions that the Dodd-Frank kind of put on them to protect savers. And so all those are already off. They're already long gone. So now the banks have a free flow to do whatever they want, therefore putting depositors' funds at risk. So therefore, having too much in the bank is basically saying that you're putting yourself in a greater risk of actually losing more. And so I want to keep moving right along, and then I'll share my thoughts as we move along. And so here's an article I want to talk about here. And so let me put this on the screen here. So this says the former FDIC, and this actually came out over the weekend. And so it says today's headline, and this is from, I believe, a Barron's article. But it says former FDIC head is worried about another financial crisis. And once again, it's another long article, but I've read through it somewhat, and you can actually just some of the main bullets here are banks are pushing for looser capital necessities. It says looser guidelines will not essentially result in extra lending, which I'm going to show an article right here. They're cutting back on lending. The large quantity of company debt is a jumbo-sized hazard signal. Talk about that. Banks maintain loads of leveraged loans and CLOs, and that's right there. CLOs, collateralized loan obligations, are the new subprime products that were subprime was pre-Great Recession or pre-Great Financial Crisis. Now, over the last 10 years, CLOs have become the new subprime, to where, according to information shared here, it says U.S. banks additionally straight held some $760 billion in leveraged loans, largely within the type of revolving traces of credit score, whatever. And so it just talks about 110 billion in CLOs have been issued through the Cayman Islands alone. So there's hundreds of billions of CLOs, which are the new subprime, vehicles out there that they've created to prosper off of. Those are what's going to melt down, or what's melting down right now. And so she's basically saying that that's something that she has concerned of. She saw the same thing happening with the subprime loan situation, and now she see the same thing with the CLOs, and therefore the banks are in big trouble. And so as a result of having taken on all those products that they created, they now are pushing for less restrictions upon themselves to have more capital ready to start dealing with some of these debts that are imploding as we speak. So what's in those CLOs? So in those CLOs, they're packaged up in different tiers. We talked about this before, but basically all the companies now that we're experiencing, they're going bankrupt in some form or fashion. Some of the debt that was issued to them in the form of those loans and the products that they've created off of those things are on the balance sheets of a variety of banks here domestically as well as internationally. So this web of debt creation and complete Ponzi scheme nature of a bank goes a lot deeper than we know. But what we're told on the surface is that stuff is hitting the fan right now. And so just look at what's happened with the Q2 numbers that came out. We had the lowest GDP and great in our history for the most part. And all that will be reflected in more bankruptcies. And so as more bankruptcies come about, there's going to be more companies not able to pay on those CLOs and everything else. Therefore, the banks are on the hook for those things. And along with that, what they're basically trying to do now is to scramble. They're scrambling as much as they can to free up as much capital so that they can deal with those things as the best they can. But once again, this whole CLOs are also connected with the derivatives aspects. They're all interconnected. So there's a quadrillion worth of derivatives. And so there's no way of ever being able to meet all those obligations or to handle them as they come. And so the question I wanted to throw out there and what led me to want to touch on this article tonight was the people who are in the line of fire, because the banks are currently imploding and people here, a good portion of the population have no clue as to what's really going on. They're the ones that will probably say that I have too much parked in a bank account. And so, of course, everyone in the alternative media realm already know how bad things really are on the surface as well as underneath. So I would imagine a good portion of you individuals out there are aware of the fact that, you only want to keep on in the bank what you'll be probably willing to lose in a worst case scenario of being bailed in. But then again, there might be other strategies out there before I stop ranting, got a couple more things I want to share with you. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on that. What's share with us some strategies. What do you guys do, or what do you recommend? And so I've had a variety of people on the past that share their thoughts, and mine kind of plays into that as well. Keeping there just enough for the next maybe 3 to 4 months at best, and then also have cash on the side just in case you can't get access to what's in those bank accounts. But putting cash or your currency inside any of those products from the banks puts you at risk. And on top of that, you're really not getting anything above the inflation rate. So you're ultimately losing out. But I'm curious to find out what you guys think. And then I got a couple more articles I want to share with you here as well. Okay, so enough rant. Says Jonathan Man says, how much is actually too many dollars in one's bank account? That is a great question. And so the question will basically boil down to your cost of living and what it takes to meet all your obligations month by month and beyond. And so there's different types of individuals out there that have different standards of living. And so we've saw articles throughout the last couple of years that I've shown where it talked about the majority of, I guess, the middle class and those that are considered low income individuals don't even have enough for the emergency saved up. So those individuals would not really fall into this equation here. And then you have a good small portion of the population that are labeled as unbanked. So they don't even have bank accounts. So I would imagine this question right here, the question you threw out there, John, should probably go towards the working class, those that have invested heavily into this current financial paradigm, and the ones that are probably also heavily invested in certain financial products that are geared towards, living comfortably in your latter years, i.e. the retirement portfolio stuff. So I would imagine that those are individuals that would be confronted with this question here. What's too much? How much is too much? And so I think if people have not given this thought before, perhaps that might be something you want to address, because here's something else that I think can really show how interconnected this whole situation is. And so here's a bank here. I'm gonna put this on the screen. It says HSBC. And so this is as of today. And so as a result of all the banks having issues, mind you, there's a certain tier of banks called the GSIBs, the globally systemic important banks. And so the GSIBs are the ones that, for the most part, they're the lifeline to our economy, to our global economy, because they're the ones that issued and created all these products that they gamble with your funds with. So it says HSBC says net profits plunged 96% as the pandemic took hold. And so once again, everything is going to be used. The pandemic is going to be used for everybody's balance sheets. Every bank is experiencing issues to some capacity. And so, of course, can you believe what they tell you? No, you can't, because if they were to tell you the true magnitude of losses that they've incurred just within this last quarter, then that right there will create some type of panic, and therefore it would go even deeper to probably get into the line of people being concerned with the idea of them being able to go down to their bank account and get funds, and that will cause bank runs. And so if you've watched any of the last speeches that Jerome Powell has given, he's been very adamant in saying that the banking sector is strong. what we're experiencing now is not like last time. Last time it was a liquidity thing for the banks, but yet the banks right now they're leading the forefront of how strong of how things are. They're well capitalized, and so when you got Jerome Powell out there trying to promote and encourage and to share some good news, saying that the banks they're doing well, they're well capitalized, and then we had the banks stress test in the beginning of this year that once again was incomplete, and so we don't know what's coming out of those banks. But mind you, watch this. When you see stuff like this, HSBC says net profits plunge, and they're all interconnected. They all exchange, and they all have the same dealings, and they're all late night phone calls, rigging the markets and whatnot. And then you realize that if you bank in one of the too big to fail banks, then ultimately you're connected as well, because here's the systemic risk chart here that shows the interconnectedness of all countries and banks. And so I just put this up here for those that may not be aware. We got so here just a little map here, and of course Deutsche Bank is in the middle, being the biggest according to their liabilities and all the derivatives and things like that they've created. They are sitting pretty heavy, but then again we have all the banks that are incorporated here. And so, of course, as you guys can see to the bottom right-hand side, HSBC. And so you better believe if HSBC just had a plunge in 96%, and that's what we're told, then those type of losses there just don't stick with HSBC. It's good to say that there's a lot of other banks in this blue, which are the European area, that they've also experienced some type of issues. And then because everybody's connected, as you guys can see here, they all are in the same game of just straight rigging the world and just conning every damn body. So up here in this little purplish color here are all the American banks. So as you guys can see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 8 globally systemic important banks. So that when one event happens to one bank, it's good to say the dominoes will continue to escalate from there. And that's just what's being told on the surface. And so I would encourage you guys, if you have not, Reggie Middleton. And so I've had Reggie on the show before, and I follow him heavily. And so he's put out a lot of great videos in greater detail highlighting how severe the banking losses are right now. And he was one of the individuals from years ago saying that, the banking crisis is, it was a lot deeper than what we're told. And he backed it up with a lot of graphs and numbers and charts and stuff that is not public. It's not stuff that they actually put out there. He does his own math. And the stuff he put out there lets me know that, they are in a world of trouble. And so just more indication as to why people should really begin thinking about, how much is too much to have in a bank account at this current moment. And then this is just the banking side of things, because mind you, as banks begin to start, shifting gears. And so here's an article here. Here's an idea as to me, it's an indicator to me of how severe things already are behind the scenes, because ultimately the best way the banks actually make money or stay in business is through lending, and is through the fractional reserve lending model. And so it looks like from this article here that they're being a little bit more picky with what they and how they operate. For what reason? What are they trying to prevent more of, or to refrain from doing? It says banks say that they are tightening lending standards even as demand for money falls. So people out here, majority of people are not even looking to borrow like that. And so I've read through the article here. The number one thing that they're still open to providing funds for is basically just real estate. And so they're not doing much of commercial real estate anymore because no one's paying their bills. And there's some other couple of type of loans here that they're no longer really looking to issue. And primarily on the credit card side, they're cutting back on providing a little bit too much capital for people to utilize, because they don't want people to profit off of what's going on, as well as they're probably, just a little concerned with overextending themselves at the same time, where they need to have as much funds on deck as possible. So here's another question to ask. The moment that banks are no longer doing what they are in business to do, what does that tell us? That there's some issues behind the scenes that we should be concerned with. And so I want to share here with you. So this is what the person was concerned with. So here we have the demand deposit. So this is basically what's accessible inside or what's supposed to be accessible inside the vaults, or immediately for you to go down to your bank and to get something tangible in your hand. And so here you see over the last, 1960. So, and every gray bar is, of course, recession. And here's what's interesting. So look at the current amount of funds that are available inside of the supposedly commercial banks as of now, inside their vaults, or easily accessible. If they just make a phone call to the Federal Reserve, they should be able to get some funds down there. But look at this. And so I just noticed that they officially put the gray bar. They just officially announced via this gray bar a recession. And so it was $1.6 trillion in cash readily available for people to be able to go and actually withdraw if they want it, relatively right away, to go demand your deposit. You can go demand it. And so within the last 4 months, there's been an additional 600 plus billion units of currency created and put into people's savings accounts. So you factor in all those checks that were given out, the PPP, the BBB, and all that stuff like that. We know that people are not spending as much. And so they're saving that. So the banks right now have an additional $600 billion in their vaults to be able to lend if they wanted to. But yet, for some reason, they're being real strict with their lending practices right now. And so once again, the more you save inside the banks, the more you stand to lose once this thing comes crumbling down, because the bail-in is on the table. It's still readily available. It can be used, and it's legal for them to use. And so last little graph here, I'll show you guys, and then I'm going to dial back. And so with all that saving there, as my guy Gregory Manarino always mentions, they can continue to do more of what they're doing because the currency is not moving anywhere. And so as of right now, the velocity of M1, so all those funds that are parked in the vaults and all on digitally on the screen and whatnot, the currency right now is not moving. So not only do the banks have excess to be able to do whatever they want to do to prop themselves up to pay out some of those losses that they're taking as all these companies go bankrupt and not paying, and commercial real estate stuff is about to go belly up. And so the currency is not moving. So I heard, I think it was Gregory Manarino mentioned that until this picks up here, until people start actually spending, they're capable of creating trillions upon trillions upon trillions more. And it's not until that confidence game is lost that we're going to see some real trouble starting to brew, of which, depending on where you're looking at, you can see it now. But so it's interesting to see they have the gray bar up here now. So we are officially in recession and velocity is not moving. Now, the last question I'm going to leave you guys with, and then I'll open the phone lines and stop ranting, is that if you look at all the prior recessions, the gray bars are relatively, we got, from Q3, it started in 81 and it ended in Q4 to 82. So basically almost 2 years of recessionary type of activity. Here, the great financial crisis was reported Q1, but it happened in 07, and we got out the gray bar in 09. So all these prior recessions appear to be a year, maybe 2, 12, 18 months, give or take, according to their measurements. Can you imagine how long this current gray bar is going to be? And so my personal opinion is that it's going to be well into 5+ years if they're willing to be truthful. And along with that, we're going to have a completely whole new monetary system, and you name it. So, but yeah, so that's it, man. I wanted to lay those out. For those that came in late, the question I threw out there originally was, people are afraid of having too much cash. Question is, how much are you willing to lose by keeping too much in the bank? It's going to be the question you're going to ask yourself. And so once again, it's not your cash. Once it's in their possession, you have claim to it. But yet, if you can't go down there and get inside there to get that cash out, is it really yours? And so, all right. So enough of me ranting, man. 24 minutes of me ranting. I apologize for that, but I had to get all that off my chest. And so let me know if you guys got some questions or whatnot, as well as let me get these phone lines open. Let's talk about this a little bit. Share with me your thoughts. What's too much? What's not enough? How would you grade it? How would you rank it? Let me know. I'm sure everyone has a variety of different thoughts to share on it, so feel free to do so. And so let me see here. I see little brother, I'm issuing digital credit card, nothing for silver. And so we got, it seems like a lot of crypto, it seems like that. So people are, I would assume, accepting and probably anticipating and excited about the transition into crypto, because it's inevitable. But yet, like I've always said before, we are at this point not by mere coincidence. I believe it was all a part of original design. And so once again, it is what it is. But I'm curious to find out what you think. So Tiger Lizzie says hyperinflation coming, city folk moving on to the birds are moving to the country. Get your two ready. You tell it like it is. More of my money. When the mark moves, it says when the market moves, they win. Ultimately, absolute design, 100%. And so phone lines are open. People, let me hear from you guys. Whatever else is on your mind, feel free to chime in. I don't want to just restrict the talk towards the cash question. But yet, once again, for those that might be new, thought I would just share some things going on, because ultimately, what I find to be amazing is that we are now, 5 months into this, I hate using the word new norm, but I'm hearing it so much now, into this so-called controlled demolition of our current monetary system and paradigm and everything else, that we're just seeing the beginning, man. Like everything I just mentioned here is all beginning phases, and it will not get any better. Says silver doubled since March, 100%. Paid off accounts have been closed by saying, okay. Fauci needs to be tried for treason. I would be down for that 100%. Problem is, it just doesn't seem like anybody. I'm not holding my breath, because as of right now, I'm not seeing too much that convinces me that there's anybody willing to step outside of the norm to actually continue to fight for this republic, man. Because as of now, everybody's bought and paid for and going along with their script. Because once you step out of line, you won't be around for long. And I'd imagine a lot of people will ride this thing out, not realizing that they're on the same ship we on, even though they got a different viewpoint of it. But it says, how long before people start going rogue? 3 months. Rolf, great question, man. How long before people start going rogue? So that's another thing. We're 90 days as of today, April 3rd. And so now November 3rd is the scheduled presidential election. But in the next 90 days, I would imagine we're going to definitely see some more banking issues. Like Q3, I saw a report today saying that, of course, it's the pundits trying to hype things up. They're saying that, Q3 is looking like we're going to be, on course for, the start of our V-shaped recovery. I'm like, okay. And so Q3 will be more of like Q2, but probably they're going to start falsifying already the number. They like the unemployment stuff. We heard about the glitches they had with May numbers. 2.5 went back to work, and they came out and said it was an error, and they did it. So we're going to start literally like within the next 90 days. Here's one thing I feel confident about, is the falsification of all stats. We won't know what's real outside of what we can feel or what we can see with our own eyes directly. When you go to the store and you look at the price tag of certain items, you're going to be able to see some things. So all stats out the window. There's nobody in DC that's telling the truth or can tell the truth. And of course, all the mainstream news sources, all the 6 or 7 of them, they're all bought and paid for. So they have to read off teleprompters. If they steered away from reading off teleprompters, they're getting fired. And on another note, speaking of getting fired, did you guys hear about the doctor from California that was a part of the group of doctors that came out last week, I think, in front of the Supreme Court and gave that interview talking about hydrochloroquine and how they, think opposite of the so-called mainstream narrative. And the young lady who was leading the charge got fired. And they threatened her and said that if you bother to resist or fight, we're going to fire all your colleagues too. So, I'm saying? Like, this is where we're at now. So censorship and more lies. Oh, man. Anyway, so phone lines are open. Give me a call. Let's talk. Let me see what we got going on here. Also, what else is going on out there? What else do you guys keep an eye on that you guys want to talk about? Solo says, Mike, they already falsified stats. Fauci, you doing this from the start? Oh, no doubt. Oh, I would never say that the stats and information we've been given from jump has been anywhere near accurate. But yet, if you thought they were bad within the last 120 plus days, just wait until this next 90 days. And so I'm still, it was interesting watching a press conference with President Trump the other day and talking about, he was trying to be as optimistic as he could. And of course, that man looks worn down. He looks tired. He looks like they've been beating him down. He has so much stacked up against him that, his fight is real. But he's trying to throw in some stats saying that, jobs numbers and the economy's good. I'm thinking like, he couldn't even put any enthusiasm behind it because he knows it's a damn lie. Anyway, we got a caller. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Oh, I'm Patrick. I'm calling from the Washington, D.C. area.
Patrick,
how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, my man. What's on your mind tonight? What are your thoughts about either the cash situation or whatever else is on your mind?
Definitely the cash situation. I'm quite worried about, to be honest with you. I was just having a chat with a few of my Discord buddies about supply of the U.S. dollar. A lot of it's actually overseas. Most people don't realize that.
Right.
But what's going to happen when all those dollars come back home to roost,
Yeah.
And another thing, the one main reason why I'm excited about cryptocurrency is because at least I can tell how many units are in a smart contract. I can't do that with the U.S. dollar. Nobody can tell me how many physical U.S. dollars are currently in circulation at this moment in time.
Right.
Not even the central banks, I'm convinced.
Right. I agree. I do agree, and that's one of the pros of that sector there. The fact that the quantity is limited, depending on what project you're referring to, and also you can see, and so that's the benefit behind it. But yet, then again, there's some cons behind it as well that doesn't excite me. But as opposed to what we're up against now, I'll take that. I'll take the other sector any day. So
I've got to ask, what are those cons?
So some of the cons. So one of the primary cons is the fact that the open ledger technology is unique in the fact that it provides transparency and it's promoted and it's designed to promote trust or trustlessness. You don't have to trust anybody. You can look at the actual transactions for yourself. You can track and trace everything is one thing. So there's majority of the coins are open and completely viewable from beginning to end, which is nowhere equivalent to the benefits of having physical cash. You can have cash and be able to do things and it be between you and somebody else, on a worst case scenario. But then again, you have privacy coins out there that, cuts the slack for that. But a majority of the projects are open source. Therefore, I believe that there'll be more investment by the governments around the world through those, cyber links and all those companies to make sure that they know where everything goes, maybe not to whom, but they'll know geographically where it's located at some point down the line. So I think the security issue will be a major problem.
Hey, you do make a good point, but most people don't actually realize that right now, Litecoin, which is currently atomically swappable between Bitcoin, has Mimblewimble being implemented on it.
Right.
So pretty much Bitcoin will natively have private transactions on a side chain, and that's something that is going to sort of be a game changer, I think, when it comes down to that aspect of, having chain analysis, blockchain analysis to understand exactly where this money is headed, where it's been, etc. So I do think that privacy coins, though, would sort of act like a digital cash, sort of like Dash, which is the reason why they call it digital cash.
Yeah, Dash sold themselves out in order to be listed on Coinbase. So Dash, by them removing the option of within their wallet I think it was in their wallet, by them removing the option of actually sending a private send, that's when I think they sold out to where I'm not that big of a fan of Dash anymore, even though I'm aware of them, but I'm not a fan because they sold themselves out, man, to be accepted.
Oh, whoa! I wasn't aware of this.
Oh, yeah.
When did this happen?
Oh, so when Dash went on to Coinbase, Dash? And okay, it was something about their privacy feature. By them having that option there, they got criticized, and then they end up removing it from, I think it was Coinbase, if I'm not mistaken, or some other exchange. They end up cooperating to make it more feasible for them to list their coin on that exchange. By doing so, that right there let me know that they're more concerned with being accepted and being a digital method of cash and actually being something for the people that provides a privacy option. And so if you haven't noticed, they're removing the privacy option from a lot of the apps and stuff like that. So you can, I mean, I'm sure you can still find wallets that can do it, but Dash is not overly favorable with you sending private, because once again, Dash also, and Chainlink also has figured it out to where they can track Dash outright. I don't know about the privacy side. They can track them outright, and they do. So, yeah. So that's one of the issues.
That's very interesting that you bring that up. Do you know when this happened? Like what year, though? Was it last year, this year?
I want to say it was within the last year or so. I'm not 100%. I remember seeing that, though. I would say just Google Dash privacy coin. I think it was Coinbase. Yeah, because if they're listed on everything on Coinbase has to be open. So I think it was Coinbase. In order to get on Coinbase, you got to be open. Coinbase never had Monero.
Yeah, of course, you're right. But I do think that they are still listing coins that are based on the idea of permissionless trade, though. Yeah. Like 0x. They have 0x listed, which, of course, is based underneath the Ethereum protocol. And Ethereum is an open ledger tech that's currently being chain analyzed, but still allows for free trade. You don't need that centralized authority to operate within the space for you to transact with somebody around the globe. So, it's a double-edged sword with Coinbase, but that's the thing with these DEXs, man. Like, honestly, they're just the new bank. They're the new central banks at this point, if you think about it. So,
well, hey, man, I appreciate you calling, and let me get a couple more calls in here, but it's good to hear from you. And also on 0x, I think they're affiliated with Coinbase directly. So Coinbase has something, they got some skin in the game with that coin. So, hey, man,
you're right.
I appreciate you for calling.
Anyway, anytime. Take it easy.
Yeah,
all right?
Be good. Yeah, man, good call there. Hello, caller. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Oh, my name, I posted as Tiger Lily, and you can just call me Lily. I'm calling from Texas, and I just moved from Utah to Texas, and I kind of regret it. But I did not even know about you. I was just surfing the net. I was, listening to Peter Schiff, and your live stream popped up, and I'm like, okay, let me check this out. And I really love what you're saying.
Oh, thank you.
And I feel so alone, because nobody was paying attention, because everybody works and I wasn't working. So I'd be, prepping and listening to all these YouTubes and things. And I've been, following Greg Manarino and Peter Schiff and all of, Jeffrey Berwick. And I had never heard of you. I'm sorry about that, because you're really awesome.
Well, thank you. Well, welcome.
The question that I have, and nobody seems to, I don't know, I just heard somebody touch on it today. I really think that the dollar is going to go to zero, because I studied Venezuela, what happened there. Yeah. And I think it's going to go to zero, like by the end of the year. And I think this all is psyops. This mask thing is BS, because I was an RN for 9 years, and I just, there's just no way this makes any sense whatsoever. It's just about, I heard somebody say it makes sense that these instructions were not mandated or were not suggested by medical physicians or, professionals. Right. It was by psychologists, because they're wanting to control our minds, right. And I walked out here in a little country town in Texas where I am, and I can see all the obedient, masked people, and then the disobedient ones like me, they're kind of giving me their stink eye, it's like, why don't you have your mask on? Yeah. And it's like, and it's like, it's a psyop. It's like people are, just believing this stuff. They're watching television. That's why I don't watch television. I just watch people like you, and I get on YouTube, and when something doesn't make sense, I start researching it, Yeah. But here's my financial question for you. Yeah. Okay. So I had a house in Utah, and, I've always believed, safer rainy day, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But my husband, he's 15 years older. He managed I'm finished, I'm not going to, begrudge the fact that, I just let him run the finances and whatever. So when we had our house in Utah, he refinanced it like 3 times. So, and then I said, you know, you really need to sell that house because, you know, the thing is tanking, the economy's tanking, blah, blah, blah. Well, we just sold it. Okay. And we were ahead $2,000, which is fine. So my question to you now, so I have a little piece of property in Texas, just a little lot, and I bought a camper that's paid off and I live on there. But my question for you is this, is now, because I see that a lot of people are buying houses. Like if you were to buy a house now and you say you have to pay $1,500 mortgage for 30 years, something like that. I'm old, I wouldn't last that long, but if you did something like that, and if the dollar went like hyperinflation, you know, that dollar isn't worth it. If you know, if it's fixed, if it's $1,500 and it takes $1,500 to buy a McDonald's hamburger, and are we still locked in? Is that like a great deal?
Oh, okay. So great question there. And so I've touched on this before, and as well as based upon prior experiences, I think it was the situation happened in Mexico. There was the currency crisis in Mexico was, I think, a great example that I think Lynette Zhang, when she was on the show, mentioned that. And so it's one of the things where, you know, the debt did not get wiped away or is not inflated away because they're going to reissue that or they're going to restructure that loan some type of way to where you're going to have to make those same payments in whatever the next form of currency is, to where they're still going to get paid. So I don't see, you know, you being able to take those inflated currency notes and being given to the banks and they're going to accept them and say, okay, thank you. Here's your title here. You're good. So I think, you know, they'll probably, you know, restructure the loan some type of way or confiscate the house. I don't know what it'll be, but I don't think people will be getting away with a house scot-free and clear off hyperinflated paper. Now, if you took,
thank you, Mike. I'm old enough to where I remember when that happened in Mexico. They hyperinflated because I'm Mexican and I used to go down there with my daddy because we're from Indiana. And they had like 1,000 pesos in one coin, and then they changed it to where 1,000 pesos was now 1 peso.
Yeah. And so all the debt was restructured. That. So it was one of them things like you don't walk away scot free, and the goal is not for you to benefit off of this destruction. They want to benefit themselves and ruin everybody else.
Oh my God!
So, but
jeez. Well,
hey, I appreciate you.
That really. I feel better now. I feel better now that we got rid of the house, and you know, I just have my little plot of land here, and you know, I'm growing, raising chickens, and I've got a bunch of. It's against the homeowners association, but I've made friends with everybody, so everybody's like on board, you know, and so I think people need to, you know, everybody thought I was a crazy nut, and I have a cousin in Harlingen, and he just passed away. You know, as a matter of fact, I was doing chest compressions on him, but he kept saying, you know, you're off the chain, you're crazy. You know, this is, you know, and then all of a sudden he's like, I was saying you were psycho, but I think you were psychic because he got to see the first of the COVID. And it was right in the middle of the COVID, the thing where they were saying that all these hospitals were busy and stuff. But I was following all these other people, and I'm a nurse and everything, and I was kind of looking around at the hospitals because I never stopped moving around. And when I took him to the hospital, there was nobody in the ER. And guess how many, and this was in Mission, Texas. It's a little town. And guess how many paramedics showed up?
How many?
My brother counted them, 12. And there were 3 meat wagons there. Can you believe that? They were twiddling their thumbs.
Well, watch this. I don't mean to cut you off, but I got a couple more callers in. But it's great to get you on. I appreciate you calling and sharing your thoughts. And welcome to the community.
Okay, thanks. Keep up the great work. I'm a new subscriber. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, great call there. All right, let me get some more calls. And also, I want to acknowledge Pay Me Money Bags. I apologize. Let me get this up here, man. I forgot it. So I'm assuming this was some preparation type of things. It says rocket stove for sale, wood sold separate. So I'm assuming if you got something to sell or something like that, put that link out there, my friend. I'll get you out there. So I appreciate that love offering to the channel. All right, so let's keep it moving right along. And it gets a couple more questions in. So as always, let me get here. Feel free to let me know what's in your mind. It says, Mike, would you invest heavily into physical precious metals? Connor, heavily. So that's one of them questions where it depends on your comfort level, your tolerance for risk, and things like that. And so my personal opinion is that when it comes to gold and silver, because majority of the world, especially majority of the citizens here in this country here do not even know what money is in the form of metals. So they don't have any physical metals. So when it comes time to transferring wealth into that next paradigm, it will not take a lot of weight to do such, just because we'll never really be able to understand the true nominal value of an ounce of anything. Therefore, I don't think you have to go way overboard. But yet it also depends on what your plan is on the other side of this. And so a lot of people say they're going to pass it on generational wealth down to kids and kids and kids. Some people are going to use it to lease it, to buy stuff and sell it. So you don't need much to prosper at the end of all this, because of the amount of currency destruction that's going to happen globally. So this is not just an isolated event. So I got a caller here. Let me get this. Let me see here. All right. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yo, Mike, it's Brandon Commando. How you doing?
I'm doing good, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So I'm just going to share with you guys my quick strategy. So, I was stockpiling some money in the bank too.
Uh-huh.
And I was just kind of letting it sit there because, I stopped paying the bills. So I was like, eventually I might have to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started watching Bitcoin explode on Friday.
Yeah.
And, kind of watching it like a movie because it was going gangbusters. So then Saturday night at like 1 o'clock in the morning, that flash crash. You see that?
I did. I saw it the next day, but I didn't see it at that time though. But that's the volatility, man. That's to be expected.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a coordinated attack, because everyone was going long, and all the futures were adding up. But I think the exchanges realized they were going to have another 2017 on their hands, and that shit was going to go straight to 20,000. So they just pulled the plug on it real quick. It was crazy.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. And so watch this. That just goes to show how controlled, or how much control they have over that sector as well. So over the last 3 year or 2.5 years since the last bull run, they've had more than enough time to get heavy themselves. So they are sitting on some heavy crypto bags too. So you're not the only one. So they control this market, man. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, they definitely do. But whatever. I woke up in the morning. I bought the dip. I bought it hard too because I saw that money sitting in the bank.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not doing me any good there. So I was like, I might as well buy this dip. I bought it pretty hard.
Yeah. Hey, man. And so that's one thing where, because that's the new paradigm they want us to head in towards, it's going to do well. That's one thing I can say. I don't see Bitcoin going to zero. So it's going to go where they want it to go, which is to the moon. So yeah, now it's going to be a matter of, what would it look like when you get to the moon? Will you be able to enjoy it?
So here's my backup plan, right? So I was like around February, and they offered that mortgage moratorium.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I'll take advantage of that, and I just won't pay anybody anything for an exit strategy. I mean, I could board this house up and walk away from it. I could care less.
Yeah.
And that previous caller just said, go buy a camper, go buy an acre of land, and it's yours.
Yeah.
It's all yours.
Yeah. That's true, my man. That is true. Hey, man, I appreciate you calling as always, and check your mail tomorrow. You should be good to go.
All right, Mike. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, be good.
Later.
Yes, sir. Good to hear from you. Good to hear from you. Let me see here. So we got William says, I went to Beaumont Hospital in Madison Heights the other day, and it was crowded, and I never seen a crowd before in my life, and I've been in the area for 15 years. So crowded, William, crowded from cases, or what was the word that you heard about why it was so crowded? Curious to hear. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, Mike. This is Daniel. I'm calling from near Boston. I've been listening to your content for a couple of years now. When I was in Venezuela, I've been living in Venezuela most of my life.
Really?
And I gotta say, man, I highly appreciate your commentary and your analysis on the whole Venezuela situation. While I was there, I mean, you were absolutely spot on.
Appreciate you, my man.
Spot on, man.
Give me the rundown. So you just recently moved back, or how long ago before you were in Venezuela?
Well, I was born here, but I lived most of my life in Venezuela. Elementary school, high school, came to Ohio in 2006 for undergrad, and just about the time everything was going on in the last housing bubble, I was fortunate enough to extricate myself from that situation. Went back to Venezuela. It wasn't too bad at that point, but as you well know, everything went downhill.
Yeah.
And it's continuing to go downhill.
Yeah.
And I just got back here to the States last year.
Yeah. Interesting. So quick question for you. And so one thing we always talked about in the show here is that like on the ground there, here we run the metals, gold and silver and crypto for some, but there, like I was mentioning, like I don't think that they have coin shops in like, bullion dealers where you can just go and actually exchange those bolivars for metals. And so based upon what you see and the people that you are probably aware of, where did they go? Where do they run for safety to?
You used to be able to buy gold and silver coins straight from the Venezuelan central bank.
Really?
We did. My family and I did buy them. Not too many, but a fair amount.
Yeah.
But that all ended because right about the time Chavez was beginning to have his downfall,
mm-hmm.
They realized and they started operating and giving out illegal concessions for mines and everything.
Yeah.
So today, right now, you cannot legally buy or sell bullion, gold, silver. You can't, and even if you could, it's taken over by Hamas, terrorist elements, FARC.
Mm-hmm.
They're all illegal mining in what Hugo Chavez, one of his big projects was the mining arch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about that. But,
I saw a couple documentaries on it, so I might know what you're talking about, but shine some light on it for us.
Yeah, and now, I mean, people, unless you bought silver and gold in fair amounts a couple of years ago, and I'm talking about 10 years ago, probably, to about 5 or 6, unless you did that, you're pretty much up the creek without a paddle,
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. So I think it was last year, Maduro tried to roll out a retirement plan and backed by gold. And so he was saying that you can buy gold, and I think it was a gram, 2.5 grams, and 5 grams. So did that program get off the ground or no?
No, that was a complete lie. And if I may be, I mean, not being too conspiratorial or anything,
mm-hmm.
but at that time, even the most cynical commentators and even regular people were well aware that it was a government scheme to have us surrender whatever money we had, either in bolivars or in dollars.
Yeah.
And to give it over to the bank, to the central bank,
yeah.
And they would not give you the actual physical little small gold. It kind of looked like a SIM card.
Yeah, I saw those.
Yeah, but you never saw them on the street. You never could buy them.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a huge propaganda lie and just a cash grab, basically.
Yeah, interesting, man. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you calling and shining some light on the situation in Venezuela, man. So I went there, was it 10 years ago, I think. Had a great time, man. It was a place where I wanted to go back to, but wasn't able to. So it was always good to be able to connect with people from there. So I appreciate you calling and sharing your insights.
Yeah, when the dictatorship does fall, you should probably go back, man.
Yeah, definitely. I like that region, man.
Bunch of beautiful people, and again, I gotta say, I highly appreciate your content because a couple of years ago when I was still there,
mm-hmm.
you were one of the only voices that were like on top of it.
All right, appreciate it, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate your support.
Thank you,
all right, be good.
You too.
Yes, sir. Hello, caller. Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike, it's Joe from North Carolina, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, my man. What's on your mind tonight? What's your thoughts about the cash situation or whatever else?
Well, I just had a question, actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
I'm hearing a lot about hyperinflation.
Hyperinflation, okay.
Is that a real possibility for where we are in the U.S.? Is it something to really look at, prepare for that, or are we looking at maybe something could cool down? Or I'm trying to figure out how to look at it. And how to position myself. So,
all right.
Just wondering what your thoughts are.
So that's a great question, man. And so it's one of them things where no one truly knows. We can only speculate based upon prior history and prior events. And so, and this is where my opinion comes into, every single currency every single fiat currency that was unbacked, that was strictly a pure government issued, mandated confidence scheme, always was abused by the government from borrowing too much, and the central bank that issued it from creating too much. So those two entities, monetary and fiscal policy, has always, to my knowledge, always abused the privilege of having a scarce amount of currency in circulation. And so they've always created more than was needed, therefore creating extreme inflation, if not hyperinflation. So based upon history, I would be very naive to think it could not happen to the Federal Reserve note. So that's why I say that it is possible. Now, living in a digital age, they may be trying to spin off some type of transition into that Fed coin and try to extract some of those dollars along the way so I don't know how, but I'm more than confident that the Federal Reserve note we have now will not be of value in the long run. So whatever that's worth.
That's my thing, because you see we all see the digital stuff coming, right? Like you said, with the Fed coin and what the Fed is doing. I guess where I'm thinking about the whole thing is, all right, well, does hyperinflation happen first? Does inflation happen? I know inflation happens all the time.
Yeah.
Does hyperinflation happen first? Do they go digital first? What's the timeline? Of course, I know I'm not asking you for a prediction, but it's like, well, how does that end up, transpiring?
Yeah. And so I think any way it go, it's going to be a matter of being able to maintain as much purchasing power as possible. So whether it's through a digital transition, there's going to be they're going to have to redenominate or reissue or restructure the value of the currency anyway when it comes to how it's going to be viewed internationally. So there's going to be some adjustments to the value of it anyway. So no matter what, it's a matter of how much purchasing power can you retain now. And so whether it's hyperinflated away, and of course we're going to experience deflation, which I believe is going to be stagflation, a little bit of both right now. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be what can you purchase when you go out to your store or whatever else. What can you get at that current moment with what you have in your hand? Whether it's a piece of paper, whether it's an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver, what can you leave with at that moment is what I think we're going to be concerned with at that time.
Last question, and I'm gonna let you get another caller.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Cash. It sounds like y'all were talking about cash in the bank when I was coming in. Money in the bank, yeah or no? Is it gonna get is it gonna get bailed in, or is it gonna is that what the consensus is? And I'll take that offline. Man.
All right, appreciate you calling, man. Thanks. Great question. So yeah, once again, for those that are tuning in late, I started off by talking about this article here, and so and as he was talking, I just typed in hyperinflation into Twitter, and let me see, it was something. Let me see what popped up. So this video popped up. This is hyperinflation right here. So this is, as you see, those are 100 Bolivar notes, and so I'm assuming this is a newer video, but those are 100 Bolivar notes. So imagine 10 years ago when I was, so definitely when I was in Venezuela 10 plus years ago, those 100 Bolivar notes were the equivalent of, roughly $100 worth of purchasing power in that time. But look at them things now. They're walking on them. Like those things are worth nothing to the point where they went through, I think, two adjustments of their currency already. So yeah, so this is just hyperinflation. But I started off talking about this article right here. And so this is, people fear that they've got too much cash in their banks. And it stems from the fact that, at this point, banks no longer serve a much needed purpose at this point. Outside of being able to store as a storage unit, your cash for whatever's worth. Because parking it there, you don't get much on it, and it is lawful to be bailed in. And so, as much as that might sound, that probably sounds crazy. Like they have the right to take your funds and use it for capital to restructure their issues, and then extend to you a portion of that back or some type of credit units into the bank itself. And so, by the Dodd-Frank Act, using that type of lingo, you basically, if you have too much in there, you're subject to whatever they throw at you because the currency is no longer yours. The moment you turn it over, you are now a creditor to them and they owe you. Problem is they're not paying you anything. So yeah, the question is, how much are you willing to lose? Only keep in there what you'll be willing to lose if stuff hit the fan, basically is what it boils down to, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Of course, it's not financial advice. It's just solely just information utilized for edutainment purposes. I had to get that in there. And take it all out the ATM. Take it out the ATM. Yeah, but the ATM is going to have restrictions. I think, what is it, like 400, 500 or something like that, depending where you're at. And so, okay, there's going to be, within the next 90 days, we got a presidential election, supposedly, if it goes down. Between now and 90 days, expect Q3 for there to be some banking issues that will cause some type of panic, give or take. And the banks may then look to implement some of those things that they have in law that they can do legally because it's in the law. It's in there, that Dodd-Frank Act. And so once again, there might be restrictions on how much you can get out. And so the biggest thing is you wouldn't want to wait until stuff hits the fan to then start taking action on removing what you might have in there in excess. And so once again, whatever your personal strategy is, whatever your game plan might be, realize that the currency is not yours. So long as you know that, and I got a video where I went through all types of documentation showing how once you sign the dotted line, it's theirs. But yeah, just don't take my word for it. Go find the information for yourself. But yeah, so it's possible it could happen. All right, it says banks will be bailed out, stocks will continue to rise, empty bank account. That is what okay, whether they're bailed out or bailed in, it's still going to be currency destruction. So ultimately, if currency, as you know it now, your national currency, wherever you're watching from, is what you are dependent on for your financial future, you already got screwed. So, because once again, they can't continue to create it in abundance and it still retains some type of purchasing power. It's just not possible. It is not possible. Something has to give. And unfortunately, it's going to be your purchasing power. All right. What else we got here? Okay. We go a couple more questions. It says, what % of people don't wear masks? Well, 5%. Before it reaches 25%, they will get rid of us. Michael, great question. Great thought there. How many people wear masks? Well, it's not surprising. A majority of people that are compliant because they believe, they have blind confidence in the system as it is. So they are probably wearing masks. So once again, those that do not wear a mask are the minority. And due to just sheer, what is it called? Just the fact that we're outnumbered. The people who don't wear a mask are outnumbered. Therefore, the majority will give and comply to the T. And therefore, those that do not comply will be looked at as dissidents and will be considered as probably extremists. And eventually it's going to get to the point where you're going to be called a terrorist because they're going to utilize that you're a threat to the public safety. And therefore, and once again, another topic we're going to be talking about sooner or later is the constitutionality of a mandated vaccine. So right now, the vaccine talk is covering the mainstream news, and they're not talking about any of the details of it other than will it be ready, whatever. But yet, President Trump was very, very vague in saying that, some people may not want to take it. Okay, but he didn't say people will not be required to take it. He didn't say none of that. So once again, my personal opinion, I just throw this out there, maybe 6-12 months, give or take, it'll be optional. And then after that, in order to get back to the new norm, in order to get back to work, in order to get back to normal life the way that we knew it before, supposedly, according to them, is that it's gonna be required to go back to work, it's gonna be required to travel, it's gonna be required to do anything labeled as fun or important for your livelihood. And that's probably within the next, God forbid, a year or two. So I'm just, trusting the Lord will guide me accordingly and do what he has to do. But anyway, enough of me ranting, man. It's 1:04. I apologize for keeping you guys too long. We usually don't go this long. But for those that have enjoyed the back and forth, don't be afraid to hit that thumbs up button. And as always, I want to make sure you guys, if you have not already, for those that might be new, go to rethinkingthedollar.com and just check out some of the articles I put up throughout the day there. And I got some of my steps here to unplug from the matrix And then I got all my prior interviews or whatnot. And then if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a part of the Wall of Fame, where you get a chance to list your business or whatnot. And I'll definitely pub you up on my blog there for supporting RTD. So other than that, people, it has been great hanging out. I enjoyed it as always. I will be back tomorrow, Lord willing, and see you guys then. Stay prayed up. Peace.